when I think joy lives in the heart, that's in the human realm. Joy is is very intimately connected with love. And when we're sort of in that place where we can feel joy in the love, that's where we start to look at how do I embrace everything that happens with a sense of this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm growing from. Not that you have to immediately slap a happy face on things that are hard, not at all. We have all kinds of feelings and emotions and they all belong. But there's a sense, I think, that joy is the essence there, right? It's the seed of all of it, and being able to embrace what is as opposed to resist what is, I think helps to eliminate some of the suffering or unnecessary suffering we might have.
And we're going to be so hyper focused that we're going to get lost.
Mhm.
And really finding ourselves. I feel like that what maybe what you're saying, and maybe this will align, but finding yourself is really finding joy.
Joy is made up of energetic molecules, but when I think about and the movement of those molecules inside of us, but when I think about the anatomy of joy, I am thinking about alignment. I'm thinking about bringing your wisdom down to reality, bringing that reality up to meet your wisdom.
You might be expecting this podcast to discuss hot baths, meditation techniques, and breathing exercises. But really, those are only just pressure releases, and they don't fix the true cause. The true issue is a contracted mind. And a contracted mind creates stress, upset, frustration, and impatience. A relaxed mind creates inspiration, connection, fresh ideas, and solutions to intractable problems. We're going to explore how you can relax into presence. This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. Welcome to the Releasing Mental Tension podcast. I'm your host, Rich Life, and I'm going to be having a conversation today with my guest, Vicki Dello Joio. We're going to be talking about joy. I know that there's very few people out there who are like, you know what? I don't want any more joy. I've had enough. We'll just leave the rest of it. We're going to be talking about the anatomy of joy. Really, what is it made of? How can we find it? And she's going to be sharing ways that you can actually cultivate it. So join us for this conversation. It's going to be amazing. A little bit more about my guest, Vicki. She is a life-changing transformational coach and a workshop leader, and she is a Qigong Master Teacher, is what she calls herself. She has her own Qigong lineage that she's come up with that is completely focused on joy. And so she also has she's an author. She's the founder of the Way of Joy, a spiritual fitness program. She was inducted into the Association of Women Martial Arts Instructors Hall of Fame in 2013. Recently got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Qigong Institute. And she also is a theater director, performer, and storyteller. So we are going to hit all of that. We're going to really focus on what is joy and how can you find it. Hi, welcome, Vicki.
Thank you so much, Rich. I love being here.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to maybe discover a little bit more joy in my life. I have a lot of joy, but I also think that we can forget about that fact, that we can get distracted.
Yes, especially these days, right? There's so much to get distracted by, whether it's the noise on the internet or some of the events that are happening globally, it can be very, very, it can get people off their sort of their core center.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned that the core center is one of joy. Could you tell me more about that? Was there a time that you discovered that?
I can't remember a moment where it went like, bing, this is it, but I think maybe it would have when I realized that my name meant victory of joy. That wasn't something that I knew always. I mean, this is the name this is the name I grew up with. It's my last name is my father's name. And I realized that there's a way in which joy is so much people so much feel like they chase joy, right? They're looking for joy. How do I find joy, or where can I get more joy? And I think that I really think it's a birthright, as you said in the introduction. I think it's something that we are born with, that it's innate to us, and that babies have it. And when I say joy, I want to be really clear that I don't mean being happy, happy, happy all the time. I'm really talking about something that's a little deeper than that, which is the embrace of all of who we are and all of what life brings from a place of being centered. And I think, when a baby cries or when they're hungry or when they're needing different things, a lot of times that's just, again, it's an embracing, it's a naming. This is who I am. This is what I need, what I want. And of course, that joy slowly gets dinged and danged as kids grow up, and there's all kinds of things that happen that might feel like they're thefts of joy. But I think that it's an actual energy field that we can cultivate that's based in the heart.
Hmm. I think it's so important to remember that it's not a limited resource because
That's
I
right.
think that we think that it's something that's very limited, that we have to make sure that we collect all of the joy. And what you're saying is no, it's more of an energy that's always there that we can tap into, that we were born with even.
Yes, and that we forget because of ways in which we respond to different life events. But it is something that we can tap into as a fuel, no matter what, even when things are hard.
Hmm.
I discovered that myself when I was writing my book. I wrote a book about the way of joy in my system. And when I was writing it, I actually borrowed money. I stopped working. I moved to the country where I was thought for six months, turned into 3 years to write that book. But what happened was a few months into it, I was happy, taking walks every day, talking into a recorder. This was before we had transcribing cell phones and stuff. And I would be walking in the woods and I would talk into it. I'd come home, transcribe. I was sort of in that happy, I am in this creative zone place. And then I got a call from my uncle that he had just discovered that he had fourth stage lung cancer, and that he was dying, and that he wanted me to bring my mother to be with him. And so I did. And when we got after he died, when we got back, my mother was diagnosed with uh, breast cancer, and my one of my senior students was also had severe lung cancer. In fact, they were both in the same hospital. I was running back and forth from one room to the other. Anyway, suffice it to say, one thing happened after another. My wife's father died. My dad died. And I remember a friend of mine saying, well, Vicki, this is terrible. I mean, you took this time off to go write your book, and then there's all these interruptions. And I realized, no, for me to write a book about joy being a fuel no matter what, it was like kind of a belt test or a kitchen test, right? It's like, okay, I'm kitchen testing. Does this really work? How does this work? How does this help me? Not only if I'm suffering or having a hard time, but if people that I love are suffering. What does it mean to be connected to joy at that point? And that's when I started to realize this is a real thing, because it was what helped me writing this book, starting to think about how to access it. What does it mean to live it, to reclaim it, to come back to it? I feel like I got to experience that again and again over those 3 years as I was completing the manuscript.
Wow, that's quite the story about your own path of resistance through this thing that we call life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think I wanted to speak to is that there are some people I think that are seeking joy because they're trying to avoid those challenging experiences. They're trying to say, well, if I find joy, then I don't have to feel challenged. There won't be these hard things in life. And it sounds like what you're seeing and what you've seen is that those things will still happen and you still will have challenging parts of life and you still will feel that what you feel and experience what you experience and that there can be kind of a joy that's underneath that maybe.
I love how you reflected that. That's really beautiful, Rich. I agree. I agree with what you just said. I think that that it's again why I would delineate it from just being happy all the time.
Mhm.
There's something about the embrace of the wholeness, being able to embrace the wholeness of what's happening. And it's not that I'm happy about it when my mother's suffering or I'm watching them stick needles in her or something. That's not a happy moment. But then how do I ground? How do I stay present? How do I stay with her and stay in the love? Because joy in so you said I'm a Chinese martial arts. I do Qigong master. I call myself a master teacher, not a master, just because I can claim mastery of my own system, which I teach. But Qigong masters I sort of reserve for those who are carrying forward specific lineages. I have my own lineage, which is a hybrid version of all of these different techniques I've learned. But the bottom line is that in Qigong, there's basically three levels of what I would call three levels of consciousness. There's the heaven realm, which has to do with our wisdom. There's the human realm, which has to do with our connections with one another, with the world around us, with plants and animals and insects and just our being on this planet. And then there's the earth realm itself, which has to do with our grounding and our confidence and our ability to walk our talk, to be able to stay grounded no matter what. So when I think joy lives in the heart, it's in the human realm. Joy is very intimately connected with love, and when we're sort of in that place where we can feel joy in the love, that's where we start to look at how do I embrace everything that happens with a sense of this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm growing from. Not that you have to immediately slap a happy face on things that are hard, not at all. We have all kinds of feelings and emotions and they all belong. But there's a sense I think that joy is the essence there, right? It's the seed of all of it. And being able to embrace what is as opposed to resist what is, I think helps to eliminate some of the suffering or unnecessary suffering we might have.
Yeah, because I tried to find joy. There was a point in my life when I was seeking, very much trying to discover and say, well, I can make it. I can figure out how to put it on an assembly line and box it up and put it in a container so that I can access it. I can have it at any time.
And was that because you were feeling that you didn't have joy, you didn't know where it was, and that you felt like there were things you didn't want, you were focusing on what you didn't want, or how did that pursuit get initiated?
I always struggled. So I had always struggled to find what other people called happiness, to find joy. And maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just a story that my mind told me because I was misdiagnosed as bipolar when I was very young. And I
Mm.
would go through these roller coasters, and of course, I would feel the excitement, the love, the joy, and then I would feel very, very low, very, very down. And so I thought maybe I can manipulate it. And I even would put like a sticker that had a smiley face in different places in my vision so that I would be like, oh, I'm gonna be happy now. And just to try and trigger myself. Like maybe I'm a Pavlov's dog and I can trigger myself into happiness or something like that. And it kind of worked, but it
It
didn't.
reminded you that it was there at least.
Yeah, I was like, okay. It kind of worked, but there were times when it didn't work. There were times when it did. There were times when I felt so lost that I didn't feel like I had it anymore.
Mhm.
And I think what you're trying to point to is that we don't have to work really hard to create something that's already innate in us.
Yes, yes. I couldn't say it better. That was perfect.
And it also seems like there's this way that you can kind of come in tune with it. That that was something that you found maybe through Qigong or through self-expression. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I love that you put those two things together because I actually think they're part of the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, Joy and self-expression, being able to be fully who you are, no matter what the circumstances, being able to stand your ground, be able to stay present, to be able to express yourself at your truth in a way that feels open and vulnerable and at the same time has power in it. So I think that that I think that those two things are linked in, which is part of I think why when I work as a coach and I direct and I do all these different things, but they're all kind of the same thing in my being, which is, basically helping people if I'm helping people tell their story from a stage, if it's a speaker who wants to tell their story because they're delivering a message, or an actor who wants to tell a story about their life, or whatever the story might be, that's all part of something in Qigong that's called Wei Qi. And Wei Qi has to do with your external energy. It means outer energy, basically. And when we can look at how to play in that field where, like you said, it's innate, and at the same time we can expand from the heart, from that place which is the center of the human realm of joy and love. We can extend from the heart out, creating an actual physical field, which I've actually experienced it as physical, not just as a mental construct, and seen results from that over and over and over again. So I think that putting those two things together was really right.
Hmm. And it so I think the million-dollar question then is how do you tap into that? I mean, it sounds like okay, I can expand this field. That sounds awesome. Okay, teach me how, it's like
Well, there's all different ways I could talk about it. I mean, part of it would be experiential, right? Um, uh, Basically, I think that, we were calling this the anatomy of joy. I think that there's this a concept of an alignment between your wisdom, the guidance that you get from, say, the divine, or even if you don't have a spiritual belief, it's from the sense of perspective. Like if you think, oh, we're a planet spinning around in this universe that is, and that quantum physics tells us we're all basically the same material as the stars. We are star systems in ourselves in terms of a microcosm that makes our life force function. That when we're thinking about that, then we're looking at how do we align the wisdom again, the perspective, our ability to sort of see the whole picture, our ability to tap into guidance, to tap into inspiration, to feel that we are connected, that we are all one type of consciousness. And then there's the human realm, aligning that with the human realm, which has to do with joy and love, how we own our own strengths and our limitations, and how we are able to express ourselves, how we're able to um, show up fully, and with again this embrace. And then the earth realm, which has to do with what are the actions we take, what are we doing in our lives, how do we walk that talk, what are the choices that we make, what are and what do we want, what do we not want, and how do we walk that. So in terms of how to do it, there's all kinds of practices in Qigong that are about expansion of that field. I mean, I first discovered this Wei Qi concept when I didn't know about it. I started doing martial arts when I was in I guess, my late 20s, early 30s. And I was doing it because I was learning self-defense. I wanted to learn self-defense. I had gotten beaten up on the street for being queer, and so I wanted to learn how to take care of myself. And at one point, I think I was training for my black belt at that point. I was fighting with my partner, who was also part of my school, it was Kajikembo was the name of the art we were doing, and we were fighting, sparring in the kun in the dojo, and then we'd get home and we'd be yelling at each other. It was not my most proud moment in my life. Anyway, I was walking home from the subway here in the Bay Area called BART, and as I was walking home from BART, I was thinking to myself, I'm really tired of punching and hitting. I'm tired of yelling and screaming. I'm tired of feeling defensive and defended. I really think there's got to be another way. And just as that thought came into my head, this guy walked around a corner. And because I had started this whole martial art trend because of having had a couple of experiences on the street, when he came around, I just could feel that energy was funky, which I think all of us know sometimes where we feel like this is somebody to avoid or this is somebody we're drawn to. That's all a function of Wei Qi. Anyway, he came around the corner and he reached out to grab me. And as he did, I literally lengthened my spine. I didn't go into some kind of, fighting form or anything like that. I just lengthened my spine and just thought, I remember the thought was, I am. And his hand bounced. He reached out to grab me. His hand bounced about, I'd say, 6 inches to a foot from contact. And then he walked away looking at his hand and looking at me and looking at his hand and looking at me. So I knew he hadn't just missed, but that he'd felt something. I didn't know what it was, but when I got home, I got a call from somebody who became my Qigong teacher who had been looking at my astrology chart and said, I don't think you need to be fighting anymore. I think what you need is, anyway, so I started studying with her. And since then, of course, as I've deepened learning and then started teaching some of these practices, and had students report back that this Wei Qi field is actually palpable. There's some very simple movement if you want me to show you. I mean, we can do it together. That is a basic form called Wei Qi. Do you want to learn it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it.
So I don't have room to stand up here, but you're welcome to. And you can do it seated also if you want to. So it's fine, whatever you want. So if anyone who's watching this podcast, if you want to do it seated or standing, you get to
Probably
choose.
work better if I'm seated than
Yeah, then you're connected to
I'm
your
near
mic. Yeah.
near the mic.
So just make sure that your feet are on the ground
Mm-hmm.
and you feel the ball of your big toe and the ball of your little toe and your heel, those 3 points on the bottom of each foot. And then feel the outside edge of your foot and your 5 toes on the ground. Okay, so it's sort of going to lift your toes up and then spread them out and then put them down again. So they're sort of like paws on the ground, all right? And then you're going to lift the crown of your head and drop your chin down a little bit so that the back of the neck gets long. It's like there's space between each one of the vertebrae in your neck and in your spine. You're aligned now between heaven and earth. The crown is lifted up towards the sky and your sits bones and your feet are connected to the ground, or if you're standing, just your feet, of course. If you're standing, let your tailbone hang like a kangaroo's tail resting on the ground. And then we're just going to do this. We're going to just take our arms and cross one wrist over the other, doesn't matter which one, and just bring your hands up over your head and then out to the sides and then down. And I tend to alternate which hand is on top, but you don't have to. You get to just do whatever feels right for you. And as you do this out to the sides, you're going to let your solar plexus relax and your heart relax. So you're extending out through the tips of your middle fingers. So you do that one more time, inhaling up and exhaling. And just imagine your heart going all the way out through the middle fingers and beyond. And then place your hands on your belly for a moment. And if you're standing or even seated, you can then turn to one side just on a diagonal and do it 3 times in this direction. So you imagine what you're doing is you're creating kind of a globe of energy around you. That's it. And of course, we're adapting because there is, we're both in a space that is a little more cramped. But if you're standing in a full space, you go ahead and stretch your arms completely out to the sides and then down. And then you're going to make fists with your thumbs on the insides of those fists. And then you're going to push those hands down, those fists down towards the ground. And then release and go the other direction. So we're going to inhaling up and exhaling out. Again, inhaling up and exhaling out. One more time. And out. And then make fists with your thumbs on the inside and ground. And then you come back to center and just one more time, inhaling up, exhaling down, facing forward, and ground. So that increases the Wei Qi field. And again, I have a lot of stories about why I've actually put that to the test, but it really does it because it helps you align yourself between heaven and earth and then allows that heart to relax and expand and so that you can have that sense that your reach is bigger, wider, fuller. And it's almost like your solar plexus, your sun center is shining.
And there might be some people listening, so that if you're listening, you can go on to YouTube to actually watch us do this. I'll put in the notes when we start this activity. And or maybe you can follow along. Maybe you're just that talented. I know I probably wouldn't be. I would be like, my arm's doing what? My hand's doing what? But yeah, thank you for sharing that practice with us. And if you took a break to do that, thank you for taking a pause. And maybe you were listening during a drive. You can do it at another time. This is available to you. Probably don't do it while you're driving or working, but this is available to you as kind of a pause in your day. And I think it's never a bad idea to take a pause, to tune in, to slow down, and to sense. I really like what you said about relaxing your heart. And because it's not going to be something that you can intellectually do. It's not like a thought thing that okay, I'm going to now turn on my heart, so that I can feel more joy. It's more of a feeling into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I love about Qigong is that it invites us to feel into, to sense, to experience our breath and our movement and
intention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about the power of that.
Well, there's a lot of different approaches to Qigong. I think that there's, I've heard there now, I used to say 6,000, I now hear over 8,000 exercises that get called Qigong. So you could do, 3 different teachers and never have anything be the same. They could be all teaching all very, very different types of practices. But I think that the thing that draws all of it together is that we can bring together breath, movement, and intention, whether that's internal movement where we're thinking it. Because if you're driving, sometimes I've done Wei Qi driving. I'm focusing on driving, but internally I'm also just imagining this field in these 3 directions. And that helps that sense of being protected and held, and also being able to just expand that energy field. And by the way, if somebody was listening, what I just had us do was just bring your hands across your wrists in front of your body, lift your crossed wrists over your head, circle them out to the sides, and just do that 3 times in a row. That's what we did, and then we did it facing to each diagonal. But I think that intention for me, when I think about how I use intention in the teaching and the practice that I do, it's really I think of it as embodied prayer almost. I'll do a certain thing, for example, when I'm wanting to access inspiration or a new idea or feeling stuck about something, and I'll do a particular Qigong form called the Shower of Light. And when I do that, my intention, I'll set an intention. I really want to hear guidance give me something that's breaking a mold or shifting me. Or there's all kinds of ways in which I'll instruct people when they're working with me, whether they're clients or whether they're students in a class, to be able to realize that as we it's a way of kind of embodied affirmation, embodied prayer. When we have that intention behind it, increases the power of what we feel, which in turn increases the power of the way chi field.
Mm. And that's something that I feel like the world needs more of. Because if we're not really paying attention, our minds can kind of go to different places that are not going to be helpful in the long run, that are going to be painful. And in fact, that pain is telling us to tune back in, to feel whatever we're feeling, to sense, and to slow down a little bit. So,
Yeah, I think what you're describing changes the channel. It's like it's like we're radio receivers, right? And so there's all these vibrations going on all around us that are sort of influencing us, including internally from things that we've internalized. But it's like you can tune down some of these and tune up the other ones. So tuning down the hurry up, gotta go, gotta do this, pressure, 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 and tune into the slowing down sometimes makes things more efficient and more effective. Slowing down or listening in, taking that moment to just shift that, then can actually create a kind of flow instead of a pressure. So it allows things to go instead of push, right? We don't want to have to push. One thing I love about Qigong is it's all about effortlessness, the concept of Wu Wei, which basically means effortless, and being able to go with a flow, which is the watercourse way. So there's these concepts that are embedded in Taoism that I particularly feel aligned with. They make a lot of sense to me, which is, and it's not just go with the flow without your feet on the ground. It's being able to really navigate real life situations, but with a sense of really listening in for what allows us to keep in alignment with our own joy.
and yeah, listening is, I'm glad you said that because listening is not just for the auditory sense. It's not just for hearing things. It's listening is a tuning in.
Yes.
It's a sensing so that you are hearing something that might be underneath the surface.
Yeah.
I think that we're just so much listening to what's right in front of us, which tends to be that rush, 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 or the thoughts of I need to get this done, or anything like that, that pressure that is just right in front of our faces.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have to look at the background or even just the whole picture to be able to get a sense of things.
Mm-hmm.
If we're just looking at what's really, really close, we're going to miss out on a lot. And we're going to be so hyper focused that we're going to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And really finding ourselves. I feel like that what maybe what you're saying, and maybe this will align, but finding yourself is really finding joy.
Yes. Yes. Because that's what we are. That is our essence. That is our birthright. Finding yourself is finding joy. You are made of that. And it's really about, again, it's about that inner listening or tapping into it and um, feeling it. Because if you don't feel it, it doesn't feel real. So it's like, how do we feel it? And so a lot of times it's not necessarily anything more than just remembering for a moment, oh, I want to lengthen my spine because I know energy travels between those vertebrae. I want to feel my head connected to the sky, my feet connected to the earth. That allows, as energy comes down from above and up from below, from the sky and from the earth, that allows our hearts to relax and open, allows our clavicles to smile, allows us to go into a posture that is not only good to have good posture, but it also aligns us with our wisdom and our actions.
Mm. that definitely resonates. Right now I'm in a massage therapy program and I'm about to graduate. And so it's very connected to the body and
Mhm.
to uh, massage, the musculature, the bones, all of these different things, how they interact and how they operate together. But it's not just that, right? There's an energy behind it. And also there is a thought behind it too. And that our minds and our bodies are one expression.
Mhm.
So, like you were talking about, when we get into the fear of things, our chest is going to collapse to protect our heart.
Mhm.
Our chin is going to come down. We're
Our
going
teeth
to
are going to clench.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I had to wear a bite plate. I still do. Because I just grind my teeth at night. Uh, I think the psoas muscle, which I learned a lot about in yoga school, uh, that's one of the first things to tighten, so that we're
Mhm.
going to curl in almost like a ball.
Right,
And
and when the psoas muscles contract, then we can't release, right? The psoas is in the abdomen, and then that impacts everything around how your intestines function. I mean, it actually constricts. So and then it becomes very hard to let go of seeing things the way you've always seen them. And it makes it very, very hard then to. I'm really a believer in opening up space in the body. I'm so glad that you're a massage therapist. Thank you for doing that work. Because I think the body is one of the ways in which we can key into these. It's not the only way, but it's definitely, for me, that's why Qigong is so powerful because, like I said, I think it's embodied intention, it's embodied prayer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and two, because there's those cycles that it can get into, because the body and mind are one, they influence each other, and all of that postural will make us feel a certain way, might give us pain, it might give us tension, and then the mind is going to keep pick up on that and hold on to that, and then that it just creates this cycle.
Right.
And what I want to do, and what it sounds like you do, is you want to break that cycle. And because you can cycle in a different way. I
Yeah.
love the phrase that you just said, the opening space up in the body.
Mhm.
And that is something that is going to open your mind, and vice versa. It can create this positive spiral. Could you talk about maybe some of the things that you've seen in that in your very storied career as a martial artist, as a storyteller?
I'm not quite sure what the question is, how I've seen this.
That
Because I
spiral
got,
upward. Yeah,
yeah.
the effect
So,
of that spiral upward, and how it happens.
yeah. Um, So it's interesting that you said a couple things that were like, oh, that's right out of the nine principles or concepts behind the way of joy, and one of them is circles open into spirals, because I think that there's ways in which we tend to live in cycles, just like nature, right? We go through different seasons. There's weather differences, but the seasons don't change. They're consistent. And in the same way, I think we go through different seasons in our own lives. We're in these cycles, and when I think when we're doing the kind of inner work that I know that you're very proficient at, and I'm imagining people drawn to your podcast, this is something that's going to sound familiar, but where when you're developing that consciousness, that awareness, that dedication to self growth and to change and to service, that we can break that cycle. It opens up into a spiral, right? You break a cycle, it opens into a spiral, you get wider and wider awareness. So, for example, for me, I was somebody who I was disowned by my dad when I was, oh gosh, when I was a kid for being gay, and he repossessed me for a moment. Um, before he knew that I was gay. I mean, at first he just originally he disowned me for being having a boyfriend, and then we didn't speak for 10 years, and then we reconciled, and he realized I was gay, and then he disowned me again. So with an Italian patriarch of a father, you have to be either a virgin or a mother with nothing in between. So anyway, but what the impact that, and just to finish that particular story, by the end of his life, I was with him as he died. We had reconciled, and that's a whole long story. I actually have a whole one-woman show about that story, a kind of a redemption story. But what was happening for me particularly during the time when I was at odds with my father, and I still have remnants of it today, was that when I would do something that was kind of letting myself get a little bigger, right? Expanding that Wei Qi field. When I was, taking a risk or speaking up around something that felt scary to speak about, or on stage speaking to hundreds or thousands of people, I would focus and look and see what I would look at would see the frowning faces, or the ones that were like, she's not making sense type of faces, looking for my father. It was almost like I was trying to re-trigger this sense of like, oh, get back in the box, get smaller again. And as I started to develop more and more consciousness around that, it's not that I don't cease this now, that, not everybody likes me or wants to be around me, but when I see it now, it's more of a sense of like, oh, hi, Dad, I see that. And it's not something that makes me curl back in. So that would be an example of a circle moving into a spiral. And again, those things that trigger that self-doubt, those events still happen. I still experience them, but I experience them in a very different way. And so they're not something that is an anchor on my energy field anymore. It's just, it's just more recognition. Does that answer your question, or give an example of?
No, I love that, because for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it talks about how these things will just come up. Like, we don't have to go into and try and recreate all of the triggers and pain so that we can get through it.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's not your job. Like, it's
Mm-mm.
just gonna come up. And the other cool thing about it is that I like to see this as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every single time it comes up, it's an opportunity. And if you miss out, if you kind of dig into it and you kind of get yourself caught up in it, that's okay. Like,
I've actually, in my snarkier moments, call that AFGO, another effing growth opportunity.
yeah. It'll still pass by you. We'll
And
get
pass
out of the
through, right?
cycle
Yeah.
of it, but then
Yeah.
it's kind of like we're orbiting these things, and that's really interesting to also hear, is that you'll still pass by them. And I think a lot of people are like, well, how do I escape them? How do I
Yeah.
never pass by these ever again? I want to know, I want to just live in joy
Mhm.
and never pass by these challenging things. But it sounds like even for you, even after this crazy experience of, going through that, and then healing, and then finding Qigong and telling your story, it still comes up.
It does, but it holds no, and holds no, it doesn't hold the, it's every time it comes up, I feel like my awareness and my ability to let it move through
Mhm.
is more skillful, I'm better at it. It's not that I never feel it. It's not that I don't worry sometimes, oh, I didn't do a good enough job, and stuff that's still my dad's voice, my papa's voice. But it's more instead of how do I escape it, it's more how do I let this move through me with a sense of ease, as opposed to have to push it out or I have to do something else. But how do I just recognize it and then let the weight of it go so that it doesn't govern my thoughts or my actions, or most of all, it doesn't steal my joy.
The
And
word that
that's,
comes,
that's just, I mean, I think of, and sometimes I think that some of these emotions just need to move through us like water does, right? Just move through. which is why when you were talking before about constricting over when you feel bad and closing down your heart and shutting down your chest and scrunching in your psoas muscles, that's that's then holding on to the pain. When we can trust enough to actually surrender, this is happening, I feel this, then and I'm going to breathe through it. It's sort of like labor pain, I would imagine. I haven't given birth myself. I've been at a lot of births, but I haven't birthed myself. But there's a moment where you can allow what's happening to move as opposed to clutch.
Mm. Yeah, it is a releasing. The word that really came to me while you were describing that was really moving through it with more grace. And being graceful doesn't mean you won't stumble.
Right.
It means that you get back up and you go through the movements again. That's kind of the interesting thing. It definitely connects to movement because Qigong is movement. And really life is movement. It's just a movement of energy, of cells, of organs, of food moving through our body and water moving through our body.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the principles of stillness and motion, motion and stillness, right? Within, when we're still, we're sitting still and we're talking, but there's not a lot going on physically necessarily, but our bodies are still very active. There's a lot of motion inside the stillness of sitting. Or if you're sitting and meditating, same thing. You've got your thoughts and then you've also got whatever your body's doing to keep you alive, right? All the different many functions, the systems of respiratory and digestive and lymphatic, et cetera, et cetera. And likewise, learning how to become still in the center of the chaos that we're living in, particularly these days. How do we become still and centered in that? So cultivating that ability to be still. And one of the things you learn when you're doing, especially the fighting arts, martial arts, is how to cultivate an internal sense of stillness so that you can respond to whatever might be coming at you. Um, it's a quieting of the mind and a moment. It's just sort of just being able to stay again present in that moment.
yeah, one of my favorite quotes. I don't know, this just came up. I'm not sure how it connects to anything, but one of my favorite quotes is Mike Tyson's quote, where everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And maybe it came up because life can kind of punch us in the face, and we just respond to that. We instead of reacting to it like you were talking about, we aren't going to react to it as much if we are present, if
Yeah.
we are in that stillness and in the movement, because we're
Yes.
both we're in between.
Yes.
Even you were talking about like the movement of your body and all of these different systems working together, and there is actually a stillness behind that that is an energy that is just constant. And so that is a stillness in a
Yeah.
way.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it creates a lot of layers to
Hmm.
be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a movement behind the stillness, behind the movement, but and you don't even need to know all of that. You don't even need to be like, okay, these are the layers, kind of like, it's not like the crust of the earth that you have to go through all of the different layers. It's just a being with it.
Mhm. Yes. I think that's what I mean when I say presence, exactly, being
Mhm.
with it.
I have maybe one more question for you. And this might be the the tough one. Maybe not. Maybe this is super simple. But what is joy made of? What is the anatomy of joy?
Joy is made up of energetic molecules, but when I think about and the movement of those molecules inside of us, but when I think about the anatomy of joy, I am thinking about alignment. I'm thinking about bringing your wisdom down to reality, bringing that reality up to meet your wisdom. And when you have these energies going up and down, and in Qigong, one thing I've seen in many different systems is the concept of we bring heaven down to earth and we bring earth up to heaven. That's the task of the human. That's the focus of being human, is that ability to move up and down through these, or circulate. It's not even up and down as much, because that's more the Kundalini concept, but it's really moving circular, going up the back and down the front in the microcosmic, what's called the microcosmic orbit. That aside, the anatomy of joy to me is when we are traveling up and down in this way through our spine, through our center, through the front of our spine and the back of our spine, when we're doing that type of internal movement where we're again and again, I don't mean to get esoteric or complicated, when we think about something and then it happens. We think about a person and they call, those types of synchronicities. When we're doing something and we go, what do I need to do to elevate this to be a better service? Where that's a lifting from earth up to heaven. When we're in that kind of focus, that is the food of joy, because this energy coming down from above and up from below centers in the heart. The heart is the home of joy. And so the anatomy of joy for me is being able to align these three realms of consciousness, of heaven, wisdom, inspiration, human, interconnection, interbeing, and earth, our ability to walk our talk. So anatomy of joy for me has everything to do with aligning those three things, no matter what's happening in the world around you. What does my wisdom say? What does my heart want me to speak to? What is the earth telling me? What is the source of our nourishment, the source of our food? What nourishes me, and how can I hold in that sense of internal power? So that's what I think of when I think anatomy of joy.
So you kind of mentioned three things, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this connects to that. I it kind of reminds me, because three is a trinity. So there is, the spiritual trinity, the holy trinity, and we know that those three are one. I also get a sense that these three that you talk about, the heaven, the earth, the human, are also one.
Mhm.
There may be three different expressions of one energy.
That's
You
why I
can
call
call it
them
an energy.
I call it the three realms of consciousness. There are three realms. So they're all about consciousness, but they're
Yeah.
different entry points.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people want one without the other. They'll take these two, but not that one. They'll only take one. It's kind of like you can't really order the heavens, or order all of these three things that make up life and our experience of life a la carte. You can't do it. But I think,
Right. There's a saying, there's a form called the three gates of enlightenment. I teach it every new year at an event that I call Nourish the Flame. And the idea again is you can't have wisdom and wealth. So it's wisdom, joy, and wealth is in that particular system. And so you can't have wisdom and wealth but no joy. You can't have joy and wealth but no wisdom. You can't have what's the other one? Well, joy and wisdom but no grounding, nothing to hold it, no wealth. Wealth can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't have to mean how much money you have in the bank, but wealth of resources. So yeah, I love that. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's where a lot of the resistance is
Hmm.
for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Is
And
embracing the
so,
whole of that.
yeah, is
Hmm.
is in embracing the wholeness that is what that is.
Hmm.
And so a big part of releasing mental tension here would be to set aside your preferences and to be open to all three of those coming through you.
Mhm.
Would you say that that would be?
Yes, I think that's beautiful to be open to all three of those coming through you. And I think to also take stock of where you feel the most resistance or what feels like,
Mm,
oh, I don't need that. And look at what creates that kind of weakness or that kind of instability. You know, what is it that we can do that will really help you in the power of the earth realm and the power of that and the power of your love and joy and connection, interconnection and your wisdom that I think that trying to do two without the, you know, when I say those things, it seems obvious, but it's not obvious necessarily how we feel. So to be able to really look at honestly at yourself and say, where is it? Like I'll have people come in my classes and they'll say, you know, I've got plenty of wisdom. I have a lot of inspiration. I have a lot of love and joy, but I just can't seek to make money, right? So it's that, you know, and so that sort of steals away from the other pieces because then the focus goes on build, you know, like fix what's broken, and it's not broken. It's really a sense of being able to recognize where things are not working, or maybe you don't have the wisdom, or maybe you're not feeling joy no matter what. I did have a client recently come to me, and he came to me because he felt like he had, you know, millions of dollars. He had a very good family life and all of that, and at the same time, he felt like I just I just don't ever feel good. I never feel like, oh, the day is starting. I'm ready to go. So he was missing, you know, he was weaker in that middle dantian, and that what's the chi fields here. So, you know, I think to be able to take that inner assessment, and there's all kinds of ways to do that. You know, I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me about it, to take kind of an assessment about where you are with those three fields, so that you can be intentional about rebuilding it or finding why you might even want it.
mm, mm. Wow. Well, this is a powerful conversation.
Mm.
And like you said, I want to give you an opportunity to tell about any offerings that you have and also tell people how to find you. If they listen to this and they say, I would really like to connect with Vicki, how do they find you?
Well, one way they can find me is to go ahead to yourpowerpresence.com, because when you're there, there's a book or a guide that I wrote that's there that you can download for free, but it also gives you contact information so you can connect with me through that page if you want to have a chat. The other way to find out more about what I do and the work that I do is to go to my name, vickidellojoio.com, and that'll tell you about what I do for speakers and storytellers. And that guide, by the way, is oriented towards, I call it Let's Get Real About Charisma, 3 keys to inspire and motivate your audience every time you speak, or something like that. But what I found is that there are people who are going there now who are not necessarily, you know, trying to do speaking as a career, or they're not necessarily trying to speak because they're entrepreneurs, speak from a stage because they're entrepreneurs trying to sell stuff, but that they find that speaking, we're all speakers, right? We all speak unless we don't have the ability, but that how to speak, no matter if you're speaking from a stage to a lot of people, whether you're speaking one-on-one to a potential client or referral partner, or your grandkid or your kid or your parent, or whether you're speaking to somebody you're, you know, at odds with, particularly during these days of deep polarization. Um, it's really looking at how can we speak in a way that stays really centered, non-defensive, open, vulnerable, and protected all at the same time. And I have techniques from Qigong in there for that. So I'm finding that people who, whether they identify themselves as speakers or they don't, they're still using those tools. So I'm happy about that. So you can, that's what the guide is for. And but again, that's a place where people can connect with me directly if you want to, you know, talk more about any of this stuff.
Cool.
Uh,
Well, Vicki, I so appreciate your time, your presence, and
mm.
your wisdom during this session.
Right back at you, Rich. Right back at you.
I'm sure we'll connect again
I hope
very
so.
soon.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
This is the Releasing Mental Tension podcast with Rich Life. I'm on a mission to help people release their mental tension because I know that it helps them to be more capable, creative, and compassionate human beings. And I need your help. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you'd like more resources, visit richliferealization.com. Your vibrant life is a single thought away.